Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan
You gotta be confident about your Achilles.
Chase Thornton,
Yeah, I mean, I got him at
and Adam LaRue. Don't hope to be great and dominate.
Well, all right. Welcome back into another edition of Operation Domination. Boy, oh boy, it's week 10. Week 10 preview. We are in double digits, gentlemen and ladies. We are officially, if you include this week, 5 weeks away from your playoffs. That is what Operation Domination is all about. We're about getting to this point of the season. Are you still in it? Do you still have time to make a run? Let's say if you're 3-6, is there still time? Yes, there is. The short answer to that. And even if there's not, let's say you're 1-8. Let's say you're 0-9, whatever the case may be. It's been a terrible year. Don't give up on it. First of all, don't be that guy. Give integrity to your league. Actually play it all the way through. And this is why BTW, I'm a big supporter of punishments for toilet bowl. And maybe even paying fees for losses, because it forces the person who's out of it to have to stay engaged. It gives them a reason to not want to be there at the end. Do as much as you possibly can to just not be the last place team. Even if that's the only motivation, it still keeps the league more fun for everybody else. But hopefully we're still at the point where we're helping you win and get towards that goal that is coming up in the season. As always, I'm your host, Dan Maynard, joined here with Adam LaRue and Chase Thornton. Make sure you're downloading Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app and check out our video content when you go to the Fantasy Football Advice Network YouTube channel at FF Advice Net. Let's get right into it, gents, because there's a lot to talk about. We had the NFL trade deadline. We are going to talk about the Rashid, Shaheed, the Jakobi, Meyers, the Adonai Mitchells, all of that mostly in our Dynasty Temperature Check segment, but we'll get into it when we get there. Star-sit questions of the week. It's really interesting because we have 4 teams on bye, 4 big teams at that, who have a lot of fantasy football players. And then there's a lot of injuries, a lot of key fantasy injuries. I was just talking to Adam before the show kicked off, and I was saying how gross my rankings feel. But look at my running backs, for instance. If you're on Fantasy Pros right now, you look up Dan Mater FF, you'll see my rankings up there. And once you get to running back 18 to running back, 34, they all belong in the same friggin' tier. And that's a sad thing to say, because they shouldn't be. You're going to be starting at least 6 of those guys that I'm talking about that I think are no better really than RB3, but this week I have them pumped up a little bit more. And they're all getting about the same usage. So hopefully with some of these star-sit questions, we'll be able to help you out. So let's dive right into that segment. The first question right off the rip, I think just illustrates the point I just made perfectly. Alec Pierce, Romeo Doubs, Torrey Horton, or Parker Washington. And this person's trying to figure out a half-point PPR flex for this week. I'm going to say it again. Alec Pierce, Romeo Doubs, Torrey Horton, and Parker Washington. That's what we're trying to figure out in week 10. And this is real. I mean, this is a real struggle right now for people. I'm dead. This is so real right now. So I feel your pain, and hopefully we'll be able to help you out. Adam, where do you fall on a grouping like this right now?
I go for Dobbs. This is the situation where we talked about last week, where give me my 10 points and let's walk the next week. Let's figure out where we're winning this week with other parts of my lineup, because I don't think any of these guys are, unless you want to bank on the deep ball with Pierce, I guess. I don't think any of these guys are really winning you the week. I just give me the floor at this point. I don't want a dud in this spot, and I'm going to win my week elsewhere, ideally.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue too much. I mean, Chase, do you see this any differently or no?
I don't, if you're playing it safe, because we are in the height of bye weeks. We do have 4 teams again still on bye this week. Cincinnati, Dallas, Tennessee, Kansas City are all off this week. So if you're trying to play it safe, if you want that floor, you want those, like Adam said, 10 points a week, 10 unexciting points every week, Romeo Doubs is probably the play here. I'm actually probably inclined to maybe lean a little bit more towards who you would think would be Adam's guy in Alec Pierce there. So he's going with my team's guy, and I'm going with his team's guy. I might lean a little bit more towards Alec Pierce this week because of that threat of the deep ball. I like the vote of confidence that he got this week when they did trade Adonai Mitchell away to the Jets there, and we're comfortable letting him go and cementing Alec Pierce as kind of that role, that deep threat guy for them. I think that's the big home shot for them. Atlanta has been it's a tough matchup this week with them. Atlanta's been tough against opposing fantasy wide receivers, but I think you can kick them deep. I think they did just give up 4 for 100 last week. And a touchdown, a 58-yard touchdown. I think they can be had deep there, and it doesn't take much when you've got a guy like that to really make a big splash. So Dobbs for the floor, but I would probably be inclined to lean more toward Alec Pierce and take the big swing this week because I covered myself well for bye weeks, and I'm not worried.
Oh, well, look, la-di-da for you, Chase. Maybe the rest of us haven't gotten so lucky. The short answer for me real quick is just Romeo Dobbs is my answer here as far as this week is concerned. He is the one I have ranked the highest, so that has to be my answer number one. Torrey Horton, Parker Washington. It would be a lot closer for Parker Washington if he wasn't playing Houston. Because and I know, like I said, we're going to get into the whole Jakobi Meyers of it all. And BTJ may not play this week. We'll have this low-grade high ankle sprain. What that means, I don't know. Tune in tomorrow when I talk to Dr. Brian Scott and we try to figure it out. But I'm not expecting a big game out of him because Houston has been so limiting to wide receivers. And if you're not a big-name wide receiver, I don't want to play you against Houston. Like, at all. Like, even if you're a superstar wide receiver, I feel like, oh, well, I'm not going to get your best. So you add Parker Washington in the mix. I don't care if he's still going to have extra targets headed his direction. Like, I don't think Jakobi Meyers comes in and just hogs up all the targets in week one with the team. But at the same time, against Houston, he's no more than a wide receiver 4 for me. And with Torrey Horton, I like Torrey Horton for dynasty purposes. He was a nice little late sleeper and all that stuff. He got 2 touchdowns last week. Fantastic. Maybe Cooper Kupp does miss again. Again, Rashid Shaheed. We'll talk about him a little bit later, but he knows the offense. He might step into it a little bit faster. We'll see. He's down there. He's still much more of a touchdown or bust type of play. So this does limit it down to Alec Pierce and Romeo Dobbs for me. Kraft going down helps Dobbs' floor. You saw it last week. 10 targets, winds up with 91 yards. I thought he was finally going to get the 100-yard performance that I talked about like 2 weeks ago. He's never had before, but we couldn't quite get there. He had 28% of the target share last week. That's the same target share number he's had the past 4 weeks. So even before Tucker Kraft went down, Romeo Dobbs, 28% target share, that's elite. Like, I know you're not putting up elite numbers, but that volume number is elite. And how many times have we had the conversation about the Packers? When can we get target consolidation? We have around Dobbs. Again, he's just not the elite player to necessarily capitalize on it fully, but it's given him one hell of a floor, even with Christian Watson returning, even when Tucker Kraft was there. Kraft goes out. I got to think that consolidates the target share just a little bit. I want to give a shout out to Alec Pierce. I don't want to sleep on him. Because you guys talked about he's the big swing play. Both of you did. I think it's interesting to note, and I want to go to Adam with this because it's his Colts team. He's not running just deep routes. They seem to have expanded his route tree over the past couple of weeks in particular. And we're
13
seeing
targets last week.
Yeah,
13 targets last week.
115 yards. He was right there with Michael Pittman. And last week's not the first week that we've seen him kind of expand his route tree a bit here too. It's more of Josh Downs as a priority target in the middle has kind of dissipated. And all of a sudden they've gone from Alec Pierce, you have to run the treadmill. So you know what? We're going to actually get you involved a little bit more like you're a real wide receiver. And they're paying dividends from that. I mean, Adam, what's your take here when you're watching your team and all this?
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. I think that there's going to be some weeks going forward where it is the case that he's a legitimate flex option. And he's someone who, if you have been watching since he came out of college, which feels like forever ago, and we were still doing the show and still covering the draft and dynasty and all those things, I loved him coming out, and I thought he could be more than just a vertical threat. And never wrong, just early. But nonetheless, he has started to develop in those routes. I think the key here is, to be honest with you, I don't like players playing in Europe.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it for me. And logistically, this team, they've had good passing volume, but it's sporadic. There's weeks where they don't throw a ton. There's weeks where they will. That's kind of what makes him feel more boomer bust, but it's not the boomer bust it was with Richardson, where it was like he might get a 60-yard reception and a touchdown, and that's all he's going to get. It's a different type of boomer bust, and it's more game script related because the Colts are more than happy to just win running the ball. I think that is where it becomes more boomer bust now for Alec Pierce.
Yeah, that's perfectly well said, because I even have my notes here. Still a run first team. And then this week, again, they're playing overseas. Unless you're a stud, I'm with you. I'm not really great with Finnish players when they're going international. It just doesn't seem to work out all that often. Okay, so let's move on here to our next setup. Oh, by the way, Romeo Doubs, wide receiver 22, Alec Pierce, wide receiver 31, just to give you an idea of where I had him ranked at. Okay, so let's move to the next question. Chris Olave versus Carolina. Tetairoa McMillan versus New Orleans. Garrett Wilson, who we're hoping is going to be back. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Versus Cleveland. And this person is asking, which wide receiver do I bench? Chase, which direction would you go here?
I'm not thrilled playing any of them this week. Weirdly enough, I have a ton of Wilson and Tetairoa, should say. He doesn't like Tet necessarily, but I'm not thrilled playing any of them. But Wilson has been a top 10 option this year when he's been healthy. And Cleveland is allowing the 13th most points to wide receivers. So I like playing Wilson there. So then it comes down to Olave and Tetairoa McMillan here for me. And even though I love me some Tet McMillan, Olave is second in wide receiver targets on the season here. And he may be the only target left down on the Bayou there after that Shaheed trade. You can say what you want to about Juwan Johnson and that, but he's backed off.
Don't forget about Devon Vele. Whoa.
Yeah, no, I addressed that this week too in an article. I have no time for Devon Vele. I'm sure he's a wonderful person and his mama loves him, but I do not, especially in fantasy. So, I don't. And the other thing is, I don't think Carolina is going to have to throw a bunch in this game. There, Olave and McMillan are on opposite sides of the field in this game. Of the two, I think that Olave's team is the one that has to throw more. I'm benching Tetairoa McMillan as much as I hate to do it because I drafted him as a wide receiver too in a lot of leagues, but he's the odd man out here for me if Wilson is healthy.
Adam, you seeing this the same way or no?
Yeah, I mean, look, you guys know, again, if you watched our off-season content, that I think Tet's a special player. But the reality of the situation here, yeah, exactly. The reality of the situation here is that in our current state, in the year of 2025 and here in November, we play both of these guys strictly because of targets, not really anything else.
Yep.
And Olave gets more of them. That, don't even really need to go much further than that. I don't think Tet has a touchdown. Olave doesn't have many. You were doing it for targets. Olave has 90. Tet has 70. End of conversation.
Yeah, well, I think Tetairoa got a touchdown with Andy Dalton. I think. I have to remember off the top of my head. But the point so more being here, yes, it's Tet. I know all three of us are agreeing. People probably want to hear disagreement amongst this question. There's not going to be any. First of all, Garrett Wilson, if he's healthy,
he's the first by far.
Only go-to target, for Justin Fields. It's not even close.
And he has performed as a fantasy top 10 option this year already, regardless of how Justin Fields has sucked, regardless of Tyrod Taylor being in. Yeah, he has to be the play if he's healthy and in the lineup.
100%. And then Chris Olave just got rid of Rashid Shaheed, who was cutting into his targets as of recently. It was the only thing you were kind of worried about. And just to point this out there, because Chase, you said you're not big on Chris Olave. He's in my top 15 this week. Now, again, a lot of it has to do with injuries and bye weeks, but he's still in my top 15 this week with the target.
I would like him a lot more if he had an actual quarterback throwing to him, because he's got about 18 different developmental quarterbacks in the freaking room across the hall from him at the facility there. And Rashid Shaheed skipping town. I wrote about this earlier this week. Rashid Shaheed skipping town means there's literally no one to draw any coverage away from Chris Olave. They don't have to worry about anybody else. I'm not worried about the dying, dried husk of Brandon Cooks. I'm not worried about Devon Vele. I never have been. I never will be. I couldn't understand why anybody was picking his ass up last year. There's nobody left but Chris Olave, which can work in your favor and can work against you. It's just that I still think he's a better play than McMillan this week.
With Kellen Moore, it works more for him, because what Kellen Moore will do is figure out how to get mismatches and feature his wide receiver one. There's not a ton about Kellen Moore's play calling I love, but when it comes to his wide receiver one, he will find ways to get that guy open. He's playing in the slot, playing on the outside, playing him in motion. He'll do all those things. He has done those things with Chris Olave, and now the target share is even further. My point to say is this, and Chase, to kind of go with your I wish he had a quarterback thing. I wish Tyrone McMillan had a quarterback. That's kind of the problem. That is the problem that we run into. I wish he had a quarterback.
Dan, when you saw Marvin Harrison doing so well with a tall quarterback, did you not just look at,
oh yeah,
well, now this is Tet with a tall quarterback?
Not even a tall quarterback,
very similar
just average ass quarterback.
These are very similar quarterbacks.
1,000%.
He doesn't need a 6'7" guy. He just needs someone who can can stay over the line and doesn't need a booster seat for the team meal.
You look at Marvin Harrison.
Roller coasters.
I'll do you one better. I kept hearing how Trey McBride can't score touchdowns. He sure seems to be able to score touchdowns now.
When you get an actual professional passer of the football behind center who's competent with his reads. They actually pointed out on the broadcast the other night, you could literally see Jakobi Brissett do the reads and check, and perfect. It was like, oh, look, actual flipping quarterback work as opposed to L1.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? 4 touchdowns in 3 games, Jakobi Brissett. And now we got the great news. I don't have to wait till tomorrow to say this. We got the great news that Kyler Murray's out for the next 4 weeks. So Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, wheels up. I'm getting off topic though. So
anyway, news fantasy wise, we hope that Kyler Murray is okay as a human being and we love him and whatever. Fantasy wise, hell yeah. Fire it up.
Timeout. That was a soft benching. He's not actually banged up. Don't even get me started on that. don't even. That was purely a soft benching. Anyway, so my point with Taylor McRow.
That's a cynical take on the world.
Is this? Well, sometimes reality is cynical. Tyrone McMillan with Bryce Young this season. So you're taking out the Andy Dalton game, and I took out the game in which Bryce Young got hurt. Okay. So just be fair is fair.
Yep.
He's averaging in half-point PPR leagues, which is what we base our rankings off of. He's averaging 8.1 points per game. That would be wide receiver 48. His time with Andy Dalton has boosted him up to being a wide receiver 3. He would be wide receiver 48 in the games Bryce Young has started and finished this season. That's the problem. That right there is the problem. So while you can't drop Tyrone McMillan because of where you drafted him and the talent profile that he has, until Bryce Young disappears, you're not going to feel confident in playing unless you absolutely have to. So that's my point in saying all that. All right, let's talk about some tight ends, shall we? This is always a fun question on bye week, so we'll get into the ugly muggly. So Hunter Henry, Luke Musgrave, or Colston Loveland? Adam, which one would you start between these 3?
When you led with that open about this being a really gross group, this was the question that came to mind for me. I know you led off with the receivers, but this was where I was like, oh, PU. I'm going Loveland. I know the snaps have been great the last 2 weeks, and this last week was awesome. I don't think that's probably reality, but this is a good high over under game. I think it's at 48.5 or thereabouts. And he does have the snaps now, which is good. I think this passing offense has been getting its feet under it, and the run game has looked pretty strong since Monungai's snaps went up. Obviously, this past week it was great with Monungai, but even when Swift was healthy and they were doing more of a split and Swift wasn't being such a volume back, I think it had just helped everyone kind of fit into their roles, and the whole offense was a lot more efficient. So I'm going with Loveland. I don't love it. I just look at it. I don't think Musgrave's a very good NFL player, point blank, period. And then I look at Hunter Henry, was doing great with the targets to start the season for the first 3 weeks. So the first 3 weeks, he had 21 targets between weeks 1, 2, and 3. Since then, it's been a while, by the way. We're in the double-digit weeks. Since then, he has 21 targets. He in a team that doesn't throw a ton. They throw efficiently, but they don't throw a ton, and they spread out the ball. He has not been someone who is more than their 3rd or 4th target. That's just the reality, and I can't do that.
Yeah, it's the super spreader offense in New England. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
A super spreader offense that throws 27 times a game.
Right.
Yeah, that
Not a good
doesn't
combo,
have a
by
lot
the
to
way.
spread. Yeah.
I show you the poor man version of the Buffalo Bills offense. That's all. How inconsistent is Dalton Kincaid and everybody else who's a pass catcher on that team for exactly the same reason. Chase, where are you falling on this tight end question?
First off, listen, Luke Musgrave, it's at LaRue Adam on Twitter X if you want to come and respond to the blatant hatred that Adam has for you.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, his absolute just abject, hatred of what you have to offer as a professional football player. Henry has the best matchup this week, such as it is, but none of these guys has a great matchup. These are 3 tough defenses against opposing fantasy tight ends. But Loveland does have that pop factor. And on top of that, the Bears are banged up. Like every receiver they have has a questionable designation. And so do both of their starting running backs are both banged up as well. So if the running backs are both banged up and if Luther Burden is remaining hurt, I think that gives Loveland even more value as that short check down type, receiver. He actually ranks kind of high in the rankings in terms of his air yards per target and that among tight ends. But if you subtract capable running backs and you subtract Luther Burden, now you're down to either throwing it short to DJ Moore or throwing it short to Colston Loveland. I'll take my chances because I think that Loveland is the better chance for a mismatch in that situation against anybody's defense. So it is Loveland for me this week because I think that not only does he have the pop factor like we saw last week, but I think that because of the situation that he's surrounded with, all of those injuries up and down the roster in terms of the skill position players in Chicago, I think he may have even more especially PPR and half PPR value this week as a check down option.
Yeah, and I'm with you on this one. I mean, Loveland, so this is somewhat contingent on Cole Kmet's health, though. Now, Cole Kmet's dealing with the concussion issue. It is. Because when Cole Kmet, before he got the concussion issue, was out there on the field quite a bit again. And look, I'm just going to throw my Dalton Kincaid out here because I have to be even when I give this take. If you're going to be a tight end who has to get his snaps siphoned a significant amount because another tight end blocks and they play that tight end more than you will be highly inconsistent as a fantasy football tight end, period. I don't care who you are, how good you are. So that's the issue. Cole Kmet, this is practicing limited capacity today. Again, we'll have the injury episode for you guys tomorrow and get you more updated, but that is usually an indication that he could return. So my advice to you is contingent on Cole Kmet not playing. If not, I kind of want to take a shot on Luke Musgrave. Luke Musgrave was very athletic. I was very big on him. Remember, he was drafted in front of Tucker Kraft.
He had a great draft profile.
His problem has been that he's consistently injured whenever he gets the ball rolling. Consistently. That's been the problem. Now, whether that's affected his development to the point where he no longer has it, can't be it, I don't know yet. We haven't seen enough of him because he's injured whenever he's gotten the opportunity. So we have to see. But I do think the tight end is a very important part of Matt LaFleur's offense to fully function. And I do think Musgrave is athletic enough, at least, to take on some of that Tucker Kraft production. The question was going to be, would they allow him to play enough? Do they have Fitzpatrick blocking more? That didn't seem to be the case when Tucker Kraft went down. It was all, for the most part, Luke Musgrave. It wasn't a situational thing. They weren't having him split. It was Musgrave. So if he starts to get those, I'm not saying he's going to get the same opportunities in the volume number that Tucker Kraft was getting, but if he gets some of those designed plays, that's an upside swing. And I'm a little bit more nervous. Now, on Loveland's side, I'm still leaning towards him. Adam, to back up your point real quick, playing 76% of the routes, 18% target share, that makes him a legitimate low-end tight end one, especially if you're talking about a boosted matchup, which I believe this is against the New York Giants. Again, I still want to see if Cole Kmet plays or not. Chase, what are you about to say?
No. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I love it. The Musgrave thing too, like you got to remember, he was the more highly touted prospect of the two. He was the higher draft pick. There was a reason this guy went where he went in the draft. And I, like you said too, with it being LaFleur's offense and the tight end, that's a change from previous years. in a Packer offense. Now that Rodgers is out of town, the tight end is once again a part of the offense in Green Bay, and they have two good ones there. It's not just the Tucker Kraft show. They do have two good ones there. I still like Loveland for the pop factor, but I think Musgrave fills in passably and admirably well for him for the rest of the season.
Let me make this clear. If the Bears are smart, if Ben Johnson's smart, Loveland's a starting tight end the rest of the season, regardless of his health. I just don't know if that's really the reality as of yet. However, I wanted to add this in. What if generational talent Jermichael Finley was playing in this offense, Chase?
Oh, how fun would that be?
Just wanted to throw
I would wear that XL jersey all day long. I'd swim in it and I would be freaking happy.
Inside joke if you guys have not
Jermichael generational Finley. Yep.
Yeah. Always love to bring that joke up. All right, Adam, I'm going to go to you on this one. So is it finally time to cut TJ Hawkinson if you're in a shallower type league? Let's say 10-man league. Are you cutting TJ Hawkinson?
Yeah, I think it has been. I think obviously he's an asset in dynasty, but the reality of the situation is this is the furthest thing from a pass first offense with JJ McCarthy at quarterback. This is an offense where I'd say they're having a high passing game if they clear 28 pass attempts with JJ McCarthy. And with that, give 8 of them to Justin Jefferson. What do we have left? Give 7 to Jordan Addison. What do we like? Guys, there's just nothing here. Like I like TJ Hawkinson a lot. Yeah. I love TJ Hawkinson. I think he's an incredibly talented tight end. There's just nothing here. Like there's just not enough meat on the bone to do anything about it. He's never going to be. I haven't ranked him as a greater than top 20 tight end since like weeks 1, 2, somewhere around then. Like the volume just doesn't exist. He got up there, I guess, when Wentz was there, to be fair, but otherwise, like with McCarthy, I mean, like no, like he's just not. The volume's not there. So unless, I mean, even with Wentz on IR, like the backup situation's not getting any better. Like there's just no route here where I think he becomes relevant. I think you're better off trying your luck with, as much as I don't like to say it, any of the guys we just talked about.
I mean, he scored a touchdown last week and he's still a tight end 18. Chase, are you seeing this the same way?
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. He's cuttable. He's tight end 24 on the year. He's tight end 27 from a points per game. So he's not even, if you are in a shallow league, a 10-team league, 8-team league, whatever, he's not even a tight end 2 in your league. I realize you drafted him as tight end 6. You have to let that shiznit go. He's not the tight end 6 that you drafted, and he's not going to be in this offense, especially with McCarthy at quarterback, like we said. Last year was his worst fantasy scoring season of his career since his rookie season, okay? And he is this year underperforming last season on a points per game basis. 8.7 half PPR last year per game, 8.0 this season. So he's not even doing that well. And last year, like I said, worst year since his rookie season. His targets are down for his career. He has seen almost 7 targets a game. This year, he has seen less than 5 targets a game. And his best games this season all came when Carson Wentz was in the lineup. And even then, he was only usable like 1 week of this season. I like TJ Hawkinson's talent as well. In Dynasty, I'm more inclined to hold on to him, like Adam alluded to, but it's time to cut bait on that. Don't let that sunk cost fallacy of taking him as tight end 6 make you continue to compound the problem.
He was tight end 5 against the Bengals, and since then his best has been tight end
18. And the Bengals are the worst team in football against
that is
tight
a
ends.
Bengals stat. That is not a Hawkins.
Yeah.
1000%. So this is just absolutely brutal what's going on right now with TJ Hawkinson. I would take this a step further. It doesn't need to be a shallow league. If you're in a 12-man league, I'm cutting him. If you're in a 14-team league, I'm cutting him.
He's fringe tight end 2. Take your shot on the wire.
This is a guy who needs to be dropped. Tight end 27 on the year and points per game so far. He's averaging 4.3 points with JJ McCarthy under center in those 3 games. That's tight end 36. Tight end 36.
Speaking of waiver wire dudes,
tight ends in the league is tight end 36.
Dan, Musgrave or Hawkinson rest of year?
Musgrave.
These are guys you can get off. These are guys you might be able to find on your wire right now, no matter what size leaguer. Mason Taylor or Hawkinson rest of season.
Mason Taylor.
Isaiah Likely, who is tight end 2 on his own team, but Isaiah Likely or TJ Hawkinson.
Isaiah Likely, just for the upside that Mark Andrews might be toast.
Last one, Elijah Arroyo or TJ Hawkinson.
I'd probably stick with Hawkinson there. Arroyo's still not playing enough.
But
rest of season.
It's close though. Rest of season and explosive factor.
I don't think AJ Barner is relinquishing his role this year. Put it that way for Elijah Arroyo.
I don't think so, but I
RJ
think
Barner's
he's got a better shot than the
Arroyo's
Vikings
the better
throwing
receiver.
more than 30 times.
Well, so I at some point, here's what I would say to that. And you talked about the attempts, like a 28 pass attempt game would be high pass attempts right now. You're absolutely right. 25 pass attempts was what JJ McCarthy had in his 3 games as a starter. That's the highest that he's had. I think there's a better shot that at some point, maybe the Vikings, I know they won this past week, but maybe at some point they fall out of it and they just open up the offense because they have to see if McCarthy can actually throw. I still think there's a better chance of that happening than unless AJ Barner gets injured, of Elijah Arroyo, actually overtaking him at some point this year. At some point, at some point, he's going to have to throw 30 times in a game. It's going to have to happen. In this past week against Detroit, no one was expecting it, but they did wind up winning the game. It wound up being a positive game script. Even in the 2 games before McCarthy played, it was still close games towards the end. We've seen Minnesota get blown out this year. What happens when they wind up in that game script? And then JJ McCarthy has to throw it a bunch of times. He's a guy who I think targets the middle of the field, at least more comfortable in doing so. And that could open up for TJ Hawkinson. You don't know when those game scripts are going to come. And this doesn't change my tune on drop Hawkinson. But my point is that I think that has more of a shot of happening than, let's say, Elijah Arroyo completely taking over this season anyway. But
it's a fun conversation.
It is a fun
conversation you can actually have.
I don't know if it's a fun conversation. It's a conversation I shake my head at.
I think it's fun.
I told you guys.
I think it's fun because I always like being able to downgrade a Viking. So,
well, for you, yeah, and for me, I told you JJ McCarthy was a one read pony. But anyway, so defensive streamers.
I was right there with you.
I always get to try to get a defensive streamer question in here. So we got the Browns, the Bills, or the Panthers. I almost laughed my butt off when I saw the Panthers on this list. Who's the play and why? And I'll just start it off. Because I mentioned the Panthers thing. I get that it's the Saints and it's Tyler Shuck, and that's been like a no-brainer streamer all season long. And the Panthers defense has not been inept. Like, I don't want to act like they have. They have not been inept. They're a long way from what they were a season ago. They're still not great, but they're, not historically bad or anything like that. I'm still not streaming the Carolina Panthers defense. They don't put up enough turnovers. They don't get enough pick sixes. They don't get enough sacks. I don't care if they're playing Tyler Shuck. The Browns defense, I know that the offense has a tendency to put them in a bad spot and keep them on the field quite a bit. That's why in some games they have given up more points than you would expect out of an elite defense. But because this is such an elite defense in sacks and turnovers and still points allowed per game, I mean, this is the 10th best fantasy football defense on the season, the 3rd best fantasy football defense the last 4 weeks. They've been on fire. Myles Garrett is getting like 5 sacks a game by himself. Like, that's what's happening right now.
Literally by himself, yeah.
Then now you're playing the New York Jets, who just threw the white flag up at the trade deadline. So I think this is going to go pretty well for Cleveland. That's my number 2 defense here on the week. So Adam, Chase, I mean, where do you fall on this? Do you see anything differently or no?
I have nothing additional to add.
The Jets are a mess. The Jets are they're bottom 6 in so many stats across the league. They're tied for the most fumbles lost. And when you give up as many quarterback hits as the Jets give up, no matter who's in the backfield there, that's a problem. If you're going to be fumbling the ball every time you get hit, that's a big problem. And you think about it, Breece Hall's probably pissed off. I don't blame him. He wanted out. He was tweeting that he wanted out, essentially tweeting that he wanted out, and got to see everybody else leave town, and he has to stay. I think it would benefit that team to see what Isaiah Davis could do. But if you're going to resort to finally giving Isaiah Davis the shot, then what the hell was the point of keeping Breece Hall. So do we really think Breece Hall is all that bought in and he's the best offensive weapon they have right now if Wilson's not healthy?
Well, hold on. Here's what I'll say to that. Breece Hall's in a contract year. So
He's in a contract year, but
regardless if he's bought into the Jets, he has to perform the best that he possibly can for him to get the amount of dollars that he's going to want it for any amount of dollars he's going to want to get this offseason.
Maybe he runs angry, but either way, I mean, this team sucks so bad. And now they don't have anything going for them right now. It's got to be the Browns. They're a top 11 defense, no matter what. Like you said, they're top 10 in points per game. And yeah, there's the Dolphins actually showed signs of life last week. I don't trust them, but they showed signs of life. The Bills have not been the defense that the Browns are. The Saints, they're facing the Carolina Panthers. They're facing Bryce Young. I don't want to hear about it. So there's always a chance that they could score well too, but no, it's going to be the Browns, and that's the bottom line.
Play the elite defense in a low total game.
Yeah. Thank you, Adam. Yeah. Words of wisdom. Speaking about him.
Hot and so hot in here.
All right. On to the dynasty temperature check. We'll zoom through this quite a bit. We're going to make sure we talk about some of the recently traded guys, but I think there's one here that I find really, really fascinating because of how cheap this player was like 3 weeks ago. And that is Oronde Gadsden, tight end who I loved coming out of the draft and unfortunately did not get nearly enough in Dynasty, who is the 9th most traded player, actually, the most at the tight end position over the last week or two here. He is averaging 10.2 points per game, full season, by the way. That's not just since he got the primary role there. And he is already up to tight end 9 in points per game. Not total, points per game. He is tight end 9, by the way. So that's awesome. And because of that, the trades for him are really, really interesting. Some people are definitely gambling quite a bit. So some example trades for Oronde Gadsden here are Gadsden plus Josh Downs for a 2026 first. We have DK Metcalf and a 2028 second for Mr. Gadsden. We have just the first straight up. So the one you had to add Downs, the other you just get the first straight up. We have Xavier Worthy in a 2026 fourth. And folks, we have Oronde Gadsden straight up for AJ Brown.
What?
Guys, Gadsden has been awesome in your tight end position, but I want to hear it. Like, looking at these prices, like it's got to be real tempting to say.
Hell yeah. Oh, first of all, did Oronde Gadsden die and become Jimmy Graham? Like, I know he's been good, but like, good Lord. Yeah. So a lot of these deals, look, I love Oronde Gadsden. I did get him in a lot of my dynasty leagues, thankfully. And this maybe becomes a little bit more interesting depending upon if we're talking about tight end premium dynasty leagues too. Like we do have that conversation. It's hard to get a good tight end in a dynasty, tight end premium league. Sure. Let's just put that out there. The only one of these deals that I would not do is DK Metcalf in 2028 second, because Metcalf is unfortunately linked to a bad quarterback and a bad offensive system for I don't know how long. And we've seen that kind of be wildly inconsistent and brutal. And I do think Oronde Gadsden, I think he's here to stay. Like I don't think this is like a fluke or something that's going to disappear in his second year. Like this is here to stay. The Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, they have the historical track record of wanting to utilize tight ends, especially when they're athletic freaks like this. I'm kind of out on DK Metcalf in any kind of league. The rest of these deals I'm doing. AJ Brown, straight like, are you kidding me? Like, even if he doesn't stay an Eagle, like
especially if he doesn't stay an Eagle.
Even if he does stay an Eagle, like you're talking about a guy who puts up like 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns when he's a healthy season, and that's a floor. Like, yeah, that's Oronde Gadsden's ceiling, guys. Like, even if he gets really good and becomes a Jimmy Graham type, like that's a ceiling type of season for a tight end. No, I'm doing pretty much every single deal except for the DK Metcalf in second rounder.
I don't know that I'm excited about giving away Gadsden and Josh Downs for only a first round pick next year. I suppose it depends on what the first round pick is I'm getting, but I doubt that anybody's.
For you, Chase. Let me put it in context for you. Josh Downs, when he was drafted, was a bottom second round pick, borderline third round rookie pick. Oronde Gadsden was a fourth round rookie pick. I just are swapping a third and a fourth for a first. Yes.
You might be okay. I know what you spent on them. I'm talking about what they might be worth and what they could be worth right now. That's the one deal I'm not running to the table to turn in my freaking card there, because I don't want to sell short on the Gadsden hype right now. And I feel like that one is maybe selling a little short by giving away Gadsden and Downs. If you can get the first straight up for him, like somebody else did, I think that's a very fair trade. I think Gadsden for a first is a very fair trade. I would jump all over it. Giving away Downs on top of that, I'm not as excited about, but I'm with you there. The Brown trade, no, come on. This is two completely different freaking scenarios. You're talking about a wide receiver that has top 10, top 12 type potential every single season, even if doesn't want to use him for whatever reason, versus a tight end. And Gadsden is not your run-of-the-mill tight end, but he's still a tight end, okay? And there are other directions we can go there. Worthy in the 2026 okay, depending on where your roster is right now. The only one that I'm not running to the table for, like I said, though, is that one where you have to include Downs in it just to get only a 26 first, because I think you're selling short then on both of them.
I think I would take all of these with the exception of, I agree with you, Dan, on the DK part, but even then, kick that second up to this century, and I'm taking it.
Well, I think
if it's not 2028, when my kids will graduate,
we'll have a different conversation. Sure.
All right, we're gonna move quickly through these next two guys because they are guys that moved, so it is important. But I am just gonna give it to one of you guys each for these next two. That way we can hit DFS timely. So Jakobi Meyers, who these next two, they weren't like heavily volume guys because I based the volume off of a full week. So these guys actually had more trades in the last 3 days than Gadsden, who was the 9th most, just like for some perspective. But they were getting traded like not at all before that. So they're not like crazy high volume on the week. But with that asterisk out of the way, Jakobi Meyers is our first guy. He has 7.4 points per game so far this year. So basically nothing. 51st so far. And then again, there's half point PPR. Some of the example trades here are Theo Johnson. We have a 2026 third. We have Kenneth Walker, which is kind of the outlier here, at least in my opinion, but you guys tell me. Keon Coleman or a 2026 second rounder. Chase, what are your thoughts on Jakobi kind of in this range?
Dude, if you can dump off Jakobi Meyers, again, sure, he's a beautiful human being and his mom loves him, but if you can dump him off for Kenneth Walker, you do that. If you can dump him off for Keon Coleman, who has not been great so far in 2 years, but is much, much younger and plays with a better quarterback, I'm done with Trevor Lawrence. Sorry, everybody, but I just am. If you can do that, jump on it. I think you're selling short if you're only going straight up for Theo Johnson, pardon me. I think you're selling short if you're only going for a third round pick. I think a second round pick is pretty reasonable right now, because you've got to understand too, there's the name hype right now. He did just get traded. That was what he wanted. He's going to an offense where we think they're going to throw the ball. You and I and the American people all know that Brian Thomas Jr. is still there and that Travis Hunter is still going to be a thing, but there's that hype factor because it's trade week. If you are trading right now, I think you're selling short to take him straight up for a third. I would jump all over a second, 26, 27. I don't care. And I would jump all over the Coleman and Walker trades. I think that Meyers has a hot name right now because he was one of the bigger names, such as it is, for this trade deadline. So that's how I feel.
Pretty agreeable. I wouldn't take him for Coleman personally, but you guys know that I wasn't the biggest Coleman fan coming out. But the second Kenneth, I'm 100%.
Yeah, was I, but Coleman's like a toddler and Meyers is in old man range. I mean, he's 29. He's going to be 30 soon.
Fair enough. Speaking of another guy who is a lot of people don't realize is up there in age, a very similar age, I think is 28. Is Rashid Shaheed. He's the other exciting guy and potentially one with a little bit more excitement. Certainly has a little bit more points per game so far this season. He has 9.2 points per game, so far this season. That is 41st, so 10 spots higher than Mr. Meyers so far. And I asterisked it here because I've seen a couple for a 2026 second rounder. So I wanted to mention that that's been like the average going price. There was a couple of those in the last call it 36 hours where that's been the price. I've also saw 2028 first. I saw Shaheed plus Hunter Henry for Jake Ferguson, which I thought was an interesting deal. And another one for a contender, to me, is an awesome deal if you're a contender looking into this. 2027 third plus Rashid Shaheed for Devontae Adams. Dan, what do you think of the values here?
Pull the freaking trigger. Look, I'm sorry. I must have been asleep when this whole like Rashid Shaheed wave came through where suddenly everybody wants Shaheed all the time. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like he's a lower version of Christian Watson when Christian Watson's healthy, in my opinion, to be honest with you. Like I know in recent years, and we can use this example, he was with Clint Kubiak there with the Saints, and we know we saw him get an uptick in targets than what we were used to seeing him get. And that might be the case in Seattle, maybe. But this is still a guy that, are you going to sign him to a long-term deal? I don't know if they're really going to bother doing that. When you already have JSN, you have a team that has a lot of needs, is competing. I don't know how much they're going to prioritize a wide receiver. With Shaheed, he's probably going to want, 12 to 15 million. They already signed Cooper Kupp to a 3-year deal on that. I don't know if they're going to want to do that again, to be honest with you. So Shaheed is a nice player. He's a wide receiver 4. Ultimately. So you're going to give me, even if it's 2 years from now, a first round pick for a wide receiver 4, you're going to give me a second round pick. You're going to give me a decent a top 8 tight end right now. You're going to give me Devontae Adams. Like, yeah, to give me this deal all day, every day. I think people are getting too excited about what he did in a short spurt with Kubiak last year and him joining Seattle this season. And this is getting all out of whack here for what his profile as a whole actually is. Because ultimately, he was brought in there to stretch the defense, to help the running game, not necessarily brought in there to be a featured weapon here. Let's get that real clear what's going on in Seattle.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think he is much more impactful to the Seattle Seahawks football team than he is to your fantasy teams. I think that's the reality of the situation. But all right, cool. We're on to DFS.
Hey, Chase, your mic's muted.
Son of a gun. There. Now it's not. We're going to talk about our guys real quick. We're going to mix up this drink real quick, and I'm going to drink it real quick because it's a good one here. At quarterback this week, we are going to go with Drake May. And I haven't gone with Drake May yet. I love me some Drake May. He's a mobile quarterback, but we haven't used him yet. We're going to use Drake May this week for 6,400 here as the Patriots go ahead and take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Tampa Bay is not an easy matchup for quarterbacks, but we were talking about Drake May. He's a guy that's got multiple touchdown passes in each of his last 4 games. He's averaging 23.25 DK points, DraftKings points here, over his last 4 games. If you extrapolate that over the season, he'd be quarterback 4 on the year. If you take away a rough matchup last week against Atlanta, who has been very strong against opposing quarterbacks in fantasy, it's even better than that. So May has been hot lately, and I like that idea. Tampa Bay, yeah, they've only given up the 19th most points to opposing quarterbacks, but they haven't really faced a murderer's row of quarterbacks. If you look at their schedule this season, when they did face legitimate quarterbacks, Jared Goff didn't really have to do a whole hell of a lot in that game, so I'm not worried about that. They faced Jalen Hurts, but he only had 130 passing yards, and he did not rush for a touchdown in that game, by the way. You look at it, Mac Jones, the Mac Daddy, had almost 350 yards passing against them a couple of weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, in the last game that we saw, Tampa Bay play, actually, Sam Darnold had 341 yards and had 4 touchdowns. I like Drake May. I think he can find some openings in this Tampa Bay defense. We're going to roll with him at 6,400 at our quarterback. And then it's unprecedented, but for a 3rd week in a row, I'm actually going to go with a tight end here. we're going to play Drake May's quarterback, Hunter Henry. I know earlier I said I would not play him over someone, but I do like Hunter Henry this week. He's only 3,500. He's tight end 14, in salary, but he's tight end 12 in ECR on the week. Overall on the season, he's been tight end 15. But again, I think that he can find some openings. I think they have to throw to somebody there. And we are looking at the idea that, who knows what they're going to do with their running backs with Stevenson, with Henderson, whether either one of them is healthy enough or not banged up enough to be a short option there. I like Hunter Henry here, especially for the price 3,500. So I'll take Hunter Henry as May's primary target in this game here. So then we're talking about two more. We need two more players here because I want to give you four of them to play with. We're going to play up and pay up a lot for Amon-Ra St. Brown. We haven't used the Sun God this year either. He's 8,400 this week. And I know that's a lot, but he's facing Washington. And if you look at what Washington allowed last week to Jackson Smith and Jigba, the same kind of routes that I think that they'll throw to Amon-Ra St. Brown, they gave up a ton of points last week and a ton of yards and a ton of catches to JSN. I like St. Brown in that matchup. I like him at 8,400 because even at that price, when I look at his projections that I have for the week, he still grades out as a bargain in terms of the dollars per point that you're paying for him there. So I will take Amon-Ra St. Brown for one of our plays there. And the other play that we're going to make at wide receiver is Ladd McConkey at 6,300 facing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now I know the Pittsburgh Steelers seem to be a pretty rough defense in terms of, how they face opposing pass attacks. But here's my point here. All year long, we've been looking at this wide receiver core for Los Angeles Chargers, and we've been trying to decipher every week who's going to be the guy, who's going to be the one to get the targets, who's going to be the one to make the catches and make the plays this week. Quentin Johnston is not going away. He will not go away, but you never know week to week what he's going to get. But when you're facing a team with a pass rush like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you have the offensive line problems that the LA Chargers do have, you need to look at shorter routes, the kinds of routes that they've been having Quentin Johnston run, the kinds of routes they've been honestly having a Rondé Gadsden run take more time to develop. I like the idea of dumping it off and getting it off quickly on the kinds of patterns that Ladd McConkey can do something with there. So I think that that's what's going to happen in this game, that when I look at the game script and how it plays out, I think that McConkey is the kind of guy that they need to target in this game over the Johnstons, over the Gadsdens in this game. So I like Ladd McConkey. He's only 6,300. Again, he grades out as a wonderful value at that. So we're going to go with Drake May at quarterback. We're going to go with Hunter Henry at tight end. We're going to go with St. Brown and McConkey at the receiver positions. Now, I'm going to mix up this drink here. We're going to call it the trade rumor because the trade deadline passed in the NFL. And I know that the trade rumor is either passed or coming up, approaching quickly in your home leagues here. So the trade rumor, what we're going to do is we are going to use 2 ounces of rye whiskey right here. We're going to put that in a mixing glass full of ice here. We're also going to take 3/4 of an ounce of sweet vermouth. Okay. And on top of that, we are also going to add 3/4 of an ounce of cherry liqueur. We're going back to the cherry liqueur this week, kids, because I like it. We're going to put that into our mix here, and we are going to stir that up. And while I stir that up and get that mixed up, Dan, Adam, what are your thoughts here on some of our plays that we've talked about, or anything you want to add on top of?
Well, first, let me just say about Laddie McConkey there. The Steelers have showed up to play defense 1 week, and that was last week. They're still giving up the 3rd most fantasy points to the wide receivers. So I'm with you on that, regardless of whether you think Justin Herbert has to get the ball out more quickly than he normally would. It's a good argument there, given that Joe Alt is now going to be out for the rest of the season. Sure, 100%. Adam, here's some values that I've been looking at this week. So on a little bit of a higher side, Quinshon Judkins, he's in my top 10 running backs this week. It looks like he's going to be healthy. He's going to be good to go. The Jets are already giving up more than 5 yards per carry, and then they got rid of Quentin Williams and Sauce Gardner. and their offense can't score against the Browns. This is going to be a positive game script. Quinton Judkins stays in this thing the whole time, and he's only $6,500. Of the more expensive running backs for that classic week of that classic 1 o'clock game, slate that you have, he's one of the guys that I actually want to go with. And then I don't know why, but for whatever reason, people do not want to catch on to Jalen Waddle is a top 12 wide receiver without Tyreek Hill. He's only $6,400 against the Buffalo Bills, who have been getting torched down the field by teams all season long. So two kind of flavors there. And I guess just to throw you a third one real quick and then cut it to Adam there. I do have my eye on Juwan Jennings, who's looking a lot healthier. He's only $4,600 heading into a week with the Rams and 49ers, where there probably will be point scorers, or typically is in those matchups. So what are you looking at, Adam?
Yeah, good options. I think Rico Dowdle is one that I think is really interesting. He's technically questionable right now, but it sure sounds like that they're planning on leaning on him next week. I think that's verbatim pretty much what Canales said today, is that, yeah, we're taking it easy on him so he can play this weekend. That's more or less like what the practice situation is with him this week. And then if you need a cheap option, I'm okay with going back to the Tez Johnson well, personally. I liked him a lot going in college. He's done a good job getting separation and getting targets so far. So as far as like if you want to get in a stud like a James Cook type of guy, then that's a way to bring your average cost down.
No, I like all those options, guys. When you talk about Rico Dowdle, listen, keep an eye on that injury situation, because if it looks like he's going to be limited, or if he for some reason gets called out, Chuba Hubbard is a really cheap option against a very bad run defense, and that would allow you to really jack up your spending elsewhere in your DFS lineup. So I like that. So we've mixed all of that up. I've strained it into my glass here, and I have what we call Distiller's Cola. It's by a brand called Fever Tree here. We're adding about 4 ounces of cola on top of that there, and that is going to be our trade rumor. Slanjava, and good luck, everybody, this week.
Absolutely love it. All right. Thank you guys for checking out Operation Domination. Again, make sure you download us on your favorite podcast app. Check out our video content on the Fantasy Football Advice Network YouTube channel at FF Advice Net. Make sure you subscribe and follow myself, Dan Mader, Adam LaRue, and Chase Thornton across the board. I'll be back tomorrow with Dr. Brian Scott to talk about the injury inquiries of Week 10. Until then, have a good one.